In February, I was reading Ask and Is Given, and I started having this vibration in my nose. And I'm going, at first I thought, oh my God, I'm stroking out. This is going to be a stroke. And so...
Interesting, isn't it? That when you have a physical sensation, your first thought is something's wrong rather than something's extra right. Did you read in the book, before that happened to you, about Esther's opening and how we began to spell by writing with her nose?
Yes.
So you can feel how, as you were having this awakening through the book that you were reading, that the nose could be the crack of least resistance for you, since it was the crack of least resistance for Esther. For months, we were giving Esther blocks of thought, but she could not distinguish them from her own, and her encouragement had been to quiet her mind. So when she began hearing these thoughts, she just tried to quiet her mind. And so finally, we realized that if she was going to realize that we were communicating, that we were going to have to give her something more obvious. And so we started actually moving her nose as if it were spelling letters on a chalkboard. So also, you know how you can move your hand, you can move your foot, you can move your tongue, you can move your head. And so that kind of movement is not so necessary. But we never see you vibrate your nose. In other words, you never say, I think I will vibrate my nose in order to make a point. You just don't do it. So when your nose vibrates, you got to know somebody else is the thought behind it, yes? So that's the reason that it happens in that way. For Esther, when we want to get her attention when she's chatting with Jerry and so involved in what she's doing that she can't notice us, we give her an eye twitch. That gets her every time. Or sometimes when she's driving, we just begin thumping on the steering wheel. And sometimes she's so busy in the middle of her conversation that we thump for over a mile before she catches on. In other words, it's not easy to get your attention when you are involved in the things that you're involved in. And so as you are reading about this book about alignment and awakening, in fact, you were beginning the process long before this book even came into your hands, we want to say to you that it's just part of the process. Just part of the process.
I'm working on building a business, and I have so much guilt about success. I'm thinking about all the people in Africa that are starving, and I shouldn't make all this money.
What has your success got to do with them?
Nothing really, but I feel like
I should just make myself miserable for the fun of it?
Right. And whatever money I make, I should just donate to charity and not leave anything for me, kind of, other than bare necessities.
Why don't you just go to Africa?
I don't want to.
So, what do you think inspires you to want to have success? Are you trying to overcome poverty?
Well, I grew up not having anything, really. But, I have a lot of dreams of what I want to do. And I do think I deserve to get what I want. And the more I listen to you, I try to follow that more and more. But at the same time, there's this war going on inside of me. Oops.
She even throws away the only pen she's got. No, keep it. Keep it.
So I guess I'm having a hard time justifying being successful, and I think therefore I hold myself back somehow. So how can I let go of that?
Well, your dilemma comes from a belief that's been fostered within you long ago, and many people have it, that says there is this finite pile of resources that is not replenishing itself, at least not as fast as it is being deplenished by those who need it. And if I receive a lot of it, then someone else will then receive less of it. And if I get really a lot of it, then I can only call myself greedy. And in my greediness, I will be depriving others of it. You never say, I've been so healthy for all of these years, and I know that there are others who have been sick, so I think I will be sick for the next 10 years to give someone else a chance to be well.
Right.
You don't say that, do you? You never say, I have such a clear mind, and look at that poor person over there so confused. So I've decided I'll be confused for a week so that person can be clear.
Right.
And yet, with other resources, you are saying exactly the equivalent of that. You're saying, I will deprive myself, I will disallow myself. And what really makes it screwy is that your life is what caused you to ask for it. And if you don't let yourself have what your life has caused you to ask for, you're going to feel awful. And you don't know what the person in Africa has asked for.
Right.
So you're depriving yourself of receiving what life has caused you to become in order to leave it for somebody else that might not even be asking for it. Let's say they are asking for it. Let's say that there are a whole lot of people asking for the same things that you're asking for. What do you think you might do that would help them be more likely of letting their good stuff in? Keeping yours out or letting yours in?
Letting mine in.
We rest our case. Well, it's a good one because it goes along with the laws of the universe, and what you were doing was squirrely as it could be. Mm-hmm. In other words, you were depriving yourself of natural resources and keeping yourself from allowing yourself from becoming that which life caused you to become, and you're using the poor people in Africa as your excuse.
Well, can I ask you something about that? When they were non-physical, did they really say that they wanted to be born into that situation where they're really set up to lose?
Well, there are a number of things we want to say about that. First of all, you don't really know whether another is winning or losing because you don't know what their life has caused them to ask for. You don't know who anyone was from non-physical and what they were setting themselves forth to do. Mm-hmm. So you can't know if they're doing it or not. And you can't stand in their shoes. You can't play on their playgrounds or live in their families and know what they have become. So you have no way of knowing as you observe them whether they are fulfilling their reason for being or not. We would say, as we look around your world, that there are higher percentages of happy people in those underdeveloped countries than there are in the nation in which you live. Mm-hmm. And if you understand that happiness is the symbol of alignment, then you may begin to understand that success is about alignment. It's not about the achievement of things, although it might be about things. But you just can't know when somebody else is in alignment or when they are not. It's like, let's say that you have been living a very fast-paced life and you've decided that you're going to go on vacation and do nothing. You have so many things that are calling through you. You eat out all of your meals and you're on airplanes constantly and you're in the hustle bustle of a very fast-moving life. And while you really like it, you are ready for a respite where you just sit and do nothing. So you make a reservation in a very nice place that has a lot of amenities. In other words, there are shops, there are tours, you could go scuba diving, you could go hang gliding, you could do any number of things, but you just sit yourself on your porch of your cabana with your book and something nice to drink, and you just sit there and you say, I am in heaven. And some teenagers from the room next door go running by, and they're on their way to scuba dive, they're going to hang glide, they're going to do all of these things, and they say, look at that poor woman. She's just going to sit there all day and read that book. How very sad.
That's true.
And then they get together and they say, she probably can't afford it, they'll say. She probably spent all of her money just getting to the porch. And now she can't do anything more. So let's give her one of our tickets. And so this one says, all right, I'll give her my hang gliding ticket. And another one says, well, all right then, I'll give her my scuba diving ticket. And another one says, and I'll let her take my jet ski. And they bring you the tickets and they say, here, poor one who's obviously living a very wretched life, not up to speed with the life that we are living. Right. We have felt so greedy in the fun that we're about to have that we've decided that you should have some of our fun. And you know what you would say? No, thank you. And as they walk away, they would say, what an ungrateful person. Mm-hmm. You just can't know what closes a gap for somebody else, you see. And there's a whole lot of missionary work going on around your planet as you look into the lives of others and assume that because they don't live like you do, because they don't want what you want, because they don't succeed in the way that you succeed, that they must be needy and they must be in lack. And if you really want to carry it to an extreme, then you feel guilty about how happy and successful you are. Just play your own game and deal with your own gap and let everybody else do the same, and teach through the clarity of your example. And when you're succeeding at whatever it is you're doing and someone else is inspired by what they see, they'll ask you and you can tell them. But you cannot deprive yourself of your well-being and do any good to anyone else ever. Thriving is the best example that you can give them, you see. Esther knows what you're talking about. Everyone does. Esther and Jerry's daughter Tracy, a few years ago, had wanted a red Acura. And she'd been researching it, and she had found what she thought she could afford. And she sort of hoped that Jerry and Esther would provide a big down payment for her to make it easier. But Jerry said to Esther, you know, if we let her do this, it will be so much sweeter than if we show her that we can do it for her. And so Esther sort of kept trying to withdraw her thoughts from it and focus upon Tracy's ability to do whatever she wanted to do. And sure enough, Tracy found the car she wanted at the price she could afford. The only problem was, she said, it's in Houston. And Esther said, well, as luck would have it, Houston is where our meeting is this weekend. You can ride over with us. So they rode over together, and Tracy attended the Abraham gathering, picked up her car, and then drove back in her car. And Jerry acknowledged that he'd never seen anyone actually walk 2 feet above the pavement. Her thrill at this accomplishment was just supreme. She did everything short of levitate right out of the atmosphere. She was so happy about this car. And then, about a week later, Tracy came to the office, and Esther could tell she had been crying. And Esther said, what's the matter? And Tracy said, I have this beautiful new car, and there is a man who eats out of my dumpster. It just didn't seem right for her to have this wonderful new car when there are people who have no food to eat. And Esther said, do you think if you didn't let yourself have this car, that man would stop eating out of the dumpster? Do you think that his life would change dramatically just because you deprived yourself of your well-being? And Tracy didn't actually think that, but what she was thinking was, no, but if I didn't spend this money on this car, I would have that much money that I could give to people like that so that they wouldn't have to eat out of dumpsters. And Esther said to Tracy, but where does that end? How far will that money go? And then what do you do? Then do you sell your clothes? Do you move into a smaller place? Do you try to find some place to live? Before you know it, Tracy, you'll be eating out of dumpsters. You will withdraw yourself from the productivity that brings you the success that it does. When you get focused in that way, you cannot win. And so are we saying do not be compassionate? We're saying don't be empathetic with people whose lives are going the way you know they don't want to go. Don't get your vibration going over there. And if you can look at something like that and feel good, then it's a whole different thing than when you look at it and feel bad, you see. And so it isn't that we want you to do something different. It's that we don't want you to let your thoughts go to places that make you feel like that. Because when your thoughts go to places that make you feel like that, you stop yourself from receiving what you want. In other words, there are a whole lot of people that don't let themselves experience the success that they want because they worry about what somebody else will think about them having it, or they worry about what somebody else will experience as a result of them having it. And we want you to know that law of attraction says that success breeds success. It is as if with law of attraction the way that it is, and the speed of the stream that is flowing, It is as if there is a magnifying glass that's been laid over all of humanity, so that those who are confused are more confused than usual. Those who are clearer than usual. Those who have not enough money have more poverty. Those who have enough money have more money. In other words, the well are weller, and the sick are sicker, and the prosperous are more prosperous, and the not prosperous are more not prosperous, because in this faster moving stream, where you are within it is showing up more, you see.